Hello, and welcome to the podcast Justice Unbound, about women, religion, and the State of Israel. In this podcast, we take you behind the closed doors of the Israeli Rabbinic Courts, where all hearings are held in camera, closed to the public, and where the state applies religious laws to decide the fate of women trapped in marital captivity, agunot, of children stigmatized because of their mother's sexual partners, mamzerim, of converts who did not keep the Sabbath, and where citizens are cross-examined about whether they are Jewish enough, and much, much more.
This podcast is for all of us Israelis who want to figure out what it means to live in a democratic state that applies religious rules on all of us citizens. And we hope our podcast will be of interest to all people everywhere who are living under religious rules, whether by choice or by the force of the law. If you are a student of law, sociology, anthropology, and political science, this is also a podcast for you. Justice Unbound is written and produced by the Center for Women's Justice.
I'm your host, Susan Weiss, an attorney with a PhD in sociology and anthropology, and the founder of CWJ, the Center for Women's Justice. After working for years as an Israeli divorce attorney, and after having founded no less than 2 not-for-profit initiatives to tackle the morass of Jewish women and Jewish divorce, I began to understand that what's happening to Israeli women in rabbinic courts cannot be unraveled through an analysis of the law alone. It can only be deciphered with a deeper understanding of culture and society, hence the PhD.
And I'm your host, Rivkah Lubitch, a rabbinic court pleader who has represented many women in Israeli rabbinic courts. I've worked with Susan for over 25 years at both of her non-for-profit initiatives, Yad Leisha and CWJ, and I'm an Orthodox Jewish feminist who lectures and writes on the topic of women. As an Orthodox feminist, I've been grappling for years about what exactly that means. Can a person be both religious and feminist? Can we interpret our traditions in ways that are consistent with our modern liberal notions of freedom, equality, and liberty for women, for all of us? In this podcast, we want you, the listener, to understand the impact on women living under religious laws. To do this, we draw on our decades of experience in Israeli courts, the state-backed rabbinic courts, the family courts, and the Supreme Court. We hope to captivate you with the stories of our clients.
And we want to recruit you to our mission, to shift the discriminatory status quo of religion and state in Israel with regard to women, securing the way towards a more just and democratic society.
In our stories, we will be talking about agunot, women who cannot get divorced, about mamzerim, children born in violation of the kinship rules described in Leviticus, about women who are suspected of adultery and prohibited from marrying their lovers, about nashim katlaniot, deadly wives, women who have been twice widowed and are prevented, yes, by state law from marrying a third husband, lest he too die. All this and more. We want to try and understand why the state of Israel is adopting these ancient laws as part of the law of the land, and what we can do about it. On behalf of all of us, in particular us women, we are in the search for justice unbound, limitless, without boundaries, and liberating.
We will provide reliable, accurate information about what happens when a state adopts religious rules and courts in an attempt to imagine a national identity that has its origins in the Word of God. If you are interested in material about women, religion, and state, then you are in the right place. If you want to understand what it means to live under theocratic rule, you have gotten to the appropriate spot. If you're not afraid of criticism, because we are not, then this podcast is for you.
All identifying details with regard to our clients have been changed to protect their privacy, of course. All the events that we describe actually happened, believe it or not. All the laws that we expound upon are being applied today in the State of Israel.
And, by the way, this is not the only podcast produced by the Center for Women's Justice. You might want to listen to our podcast entitled Voices of Women at Wartime. In that podcast, Rachel Stommel and Rivkah Lubitch listen to women who talk about their experiences and feelings after the October 7th massacre, the Hamas attack on Israel in October 2023. If you speak Hebrew and you aren't acquainted with our podcast on the religious courts, please listen to Rivkah Lubitch's and Nitzan Kaspi Chiloni's podcast called Mevakrot Barabanut, Visiting with the Chief Rabbinate and Critiquing It. We are sure that you will find it illuminating. We really hope that while our podcast informs you about the challenges facing us, you also get a glimpse of the friendship that has evolved between me and Rivkah over the decades. Yes, literally decades of working together.
We would love to hear your comments and thoughts. Please reach out to us on social media on the Center for Women's Justice's Facebook page, Twitter, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn. This podcast was produced thanks to the generous support of the Gimprich Family Foundation. We would appreciate any amount via our donation button that will help support our work. Thanks to the support team for the podcast, Hannah Wacholder, Katzman, and Rachel Stilmo. I am Rivkah Lubitch.
And I am Susan Weiss. Thank you for listening.